The Mercedes-AMG GLC 63 S Coupé. That review. Let's go. The front of the GLC Coupé has been facelifted the same as for the SUV version. Headlamps start with LED now, standard, then optional the multi-beam LED, new signature, the special AMG grille. It looks really aggressive, and together with the bigger air intakes right there, also a contrasting lower bumper. And this grey Magno color is always nice to have this matte paint. You can hear how I feel it. Interesting that it's really keeping clean also, so when you go to the car wash with such a vehicle, it's possible with this paint, no problem. And then it really, just maybe a rain shower or something, it's really all clean all over the paint. And then you look at the wheels and say, oh, wait a minute, why are the wheels so dirty? So the wheels get dirty easier than the paint. It's the pure contrast. When you have a white car, for example, then the paint gets dirty easy. So, yeah, I mean, we have to clean our cars regularly, but they still keep their beauty. With 4.72 m, 15'5" or 186 inches, the Coupé version of the GLC is indeed 3 inches longer than the SUV. Of course, the wheelbase is all the same. It's just the overhang that is a little bit different. And the AMG, the 63 model here, comes with some sporty accentuations. Here also with the package that you have the black frames around the windows, black mirror caps. You don't have to go for those wheels, but those ones are the optional, the new maximum 21 inch, so really massive. Also here on the Coupé, V8 bi-turbo, soon take a look under the hood. And then the special thing is, of course, that you have this falling roof line, this Coupé shape. Although I know that some people say there is no such thing other than a two-door Coupé. Well, when SUVs start to be Coupé, that's it. Here again with this very nice matte paint, which catches the light right there as soon as it faces upper part. And then new wheel arches right there with this additional small protector here, because the wheels are so large that the regulations-wise they need to add an additional small part here. Interesting, isn't it? And then this huge wing there. I have some mixed feelings about that. When you have a Coupé shape, other than on the Estate or on the SUV or something, or a classic sedan, you have less downforce here with the Coupé, and so you actually need a wing. Maybe an adaptive one, maybe a fixed one, maybe a small lip. But this one here, a little bit too much, isn't it? What's your take on that? For all facelifted GLC models, the tail lamp design has changed, and here with the Coupé, it's also a little bit more horizontally drawn with this LED signature, and that I think is quite beautifully done here in the facelift. The 63 or in the 63S then features some sporty elements like this diffuser style and those AMG exhaust tips. The real exhaust is on the inside. And again, you can see another perspective of this huge wing lip there. This rear perspective is so aggressive overall. It's really way more aggressive than the SUV shape, I think. Again, here the question again to you, is that too much? Or would you think like, that's somewhere I really want to go out with my friends tonight? It's always nice to look at the real AMG engine. 4-liter bi-turbo V8, 510, or well, it depends on the market, sometimes 503 horsepower, depending on the spec. for the S model, or then 476 horsepower for the non-S model, for the normal 63, and 4 or 3.8 seconds as an acceleration figure, 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. So that's the same SUV and Coupé, get the very same engine. And you know, the driving performance also does not differ. So that's why they also applied this rear wing lip, that it also has some drag on the rear axle to get all the performance to the ground. The all-wheel drive here comes as standard, and since the C-Class or also GLC is a rear wheel driven platform, this one is always then rear plus front, so to say, so you always still have a rear wheel bias, especially with the AMG models. 1 meters 86 or 6'1" also in this vehicle here, and leaves some headroom still, so in the front is no problem with the Coupé. It has just one roof here, one glass roof in the front with a shade you can close against hot sun and so on. Mercedes here has the most sensual design, also with those round vents and carbon fiber style here for the 63 model. Everything is wrapped tightly here, also on the dashboard. Soft touch here and also here. That's nicely done. The new BMW X3 does have some parts where the build quality is even better, because, you know, here at the dashboard, for example, this could be done a little bit better. But then again, as for those elements, and for example also the steering wheel, that is really excellent. 12 o'clock position here, the mark, I can see it right there. If it must be yellow stitches, well, you don't have to go for them. That's a matter of preference. But here, the steering wheel all wrapped in microfiber. That's pretty cool. And the electric seat control here at the inside of the doors, also for the seat heating, that's easy to control. Well, you see, it is a very sporty cockpit. You feel somewhat caged in both SUV and in the Coupé. So to me, sometimes I wish I would have a little bit more room. Then again, if you want a very sporty interior, even in the base 63, that's what you get. Those ones are the optional sport seats with the integrated head restraints. You don't have to go for them. The base sport seats will also do just fine. Come standard with this model here with separated head restraint, give you a little bit more room to move around. Go for those if you drive this car every day. Microfiber on the inside, leatherette on the outside. That's a good choice, a standard choice. This is here the optional animal skin equipment, which costs extra money. Interior overview. Here you can adjust the steering wheel with the small column on the left side. Really nice, this visualization here in the digital instruments. When you go for the 63 version, you get this setup you see here from standard equipment. A base GLC would then start with smaller screens, but they always get the MBUX now. So you have the voice input, which works very well, and this touch screen, so it's a great infotainment update. You also have the possibility to change, you know, some brightness of the ambient light, for example, when it would be dark. Home screen always right there. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto available. You see the screen is pretty responsive. We're in New York, right there on the island. So pinch and zoom works well, but you can also do that, for example, with this lower touchpad. That works too. You can always use the back button. Still a classic climate unit here. I can also control this screen with the right thumb when the car would be properly powered, and also change the volume right there, whereas the left thumb then would control the digital instruments. You see they disappear then when it saves power. Lower end also with some inductive charging pad, USB-C supply and adaptive cup holders. So it's somehow a mix between a classic and a modern infotainment unit. So some classic stuff, you know, with temperature vents, and lower end, which is, you know, really rather a little bit old school for Mercedes design, features from the C-Class, and then this new MBUX facelift infotainment system. Now it's really great to have that one, especially when you just say, hey Mercedes, and then add some address to the GPS. That really makes your life easier than typing in everything individually. Well, then you can control also, for example, the damper rate in the lower end. That's also pretty important. And you can also get some more of the exhaust, another volume jog here for the co-driver mainly. And then there's also the armrest where you have two more USB-C supplies. Mercedes is going all the way now with USB-C. The question with Coupés here in the rear is always, does it fit with the headroom in the rear compartment? And here it does fit for 4 tall adults, no problem. The thing is that with SUV coupés, they don't have to put the roof so low, and so you can also get some decent headroom. So yeah, it's a little bit less than in the GLC SUV version, but you can surely still live with that. You now also feature 2 USB-C charging ports right there. You can get a separate climate unit also for the rear seats, ISOFIX. Well, you lean a little bit backward here, but still it's quite, quite decent in the comfort. You have an armrest right here with cup holders and also some more room right there. So yeah, it's still a vehicle you can have easily as a primary vehicle and have some decent comfort on all of the 4 seats. And well, you don't have the rear panoramic roof as you would have in the SUV version, but you can still, leak a little bit through the front one. Well, here with the Coupé, you flip the logo to open the trunk, and then you have a loading sill that is different to the SUV, where you have no loading sill. Some space below that, so that's a little bit less practical, and of course you're more limited in height right there. So if you measure that very rear part, that's here just about 30 centimeters. Only here then we get to about 50 centimeters. Yeah, but then in length, talked about it earlier, the car is a little bit longer, has a little bit longer overhang, so it's about a meter in length. That's about, like this, longer than the SUV. So maybe that evens up the less practicability you have. But again, if you have higher things or maybe like a bicycle, this will hurt you then. But still, for such a sporty outlook, you still have an easy entry into the whole trunk area. And you can also easily flip the seats from here, right there. And then you're still quite flexible as for the length overall. Again, it's just the height limiting factor. That's about it. So, and this is almost 190 meters then to the co-driver seat. Since this one here also has the air suspension, you could also lower the trunk when the car is powered. Yeah, air suspension. This one here, it comes also standard for the GLC. If you pick that up, oh, it's going lower now. So it has some power. Interesting. That's Autogefuhl live on camera. So again, normal GLC comes with an adaptive suspension or optional air suspension. The 63 models always come with air suspension standard, but then with the AMG tune to it, that it's a little bit stiffer. Again, we'll check out the driving review how that one plays out, both with the SUV and the Coupé right here. And they always say that they set the Coupé to a little sportier notch. We'll see about that. And the conclusion, the GLC Coupé as a 63S. Well, especially as the AMG model, the GLC here looks even sportier. The general setup is already a little bit sportier than the SUV. Of course, visual-wise and also a little bit as for the settings. But here, when you look at it at the AMG version, somehow as a concept, it now then makes more sense. You know what I mean? So as the sporty version, it really takes on that look of the Coupé shape. However, the SUV will always be the more practical one. If you take a look at the trunk. This one here, yeah, I mean, you limit a little bit in the height right there. This is the base thing you have there. It still opens quite good as the wide hatch. You can load in things in and out quite easily. So there are not too many differences between the SUV and the Coupé. It's really more about what is your taste, what you like better just from the shape from the exterior, and you needed extra space. I would always go for the SUV because I would actually take, a little bit more of height on the rear that I could maybe fit a bicycle in there or so. But if you really like a Coupé, but then think, oh, wait a minute, I like Coupés, but they're not that comfortable, I rather want an SUV, then this one here would be the mix or your choice you're seeking. So please tell me in the comments what you think here about the Coupé.